The air in the countryside was calm that afternoon, carrying the faint smell of cut hay and freshly turned soil. Emma had always loved the stillness of her family's farm. For her, the fields were more than land, they were the quiet refuge she had built after a childhood filled with constant moving and loneliness. She wasn't the loudest, nor the most outgoing, and many mistook her quietness for weakness. But those who judged her didn't know the full story of the woman who had lived through hardship, carried her family's farm on her back, and found love with a man whose strength matched her own quiet resilience. The bullies came the way storms do, suddenly and without mercy. A group of reckless local boys, bitter about their own failures, had decided Emma would be an easy target. She was working near the orchard, trimming branches and hauling feed, when they appeared. At first, she ignored their taunts. She had heard it before, mocking her plain clothes, her quiet manner, her simple life. But when they pushed further, crowding her, laughter turning cruel, Emma felt the first stirrings of fear. Before she could get away, rough hands seized her arms. Rope bit into her wrists as they tied her against a tree at the edge of the woods, their laughter echoing in the stillness. Emma's heart raced, but her mind was steady. Fear could take hold, but she would not let it consume her. She thought of Daniel, her husband, the man who had seen through her quietness and recognized the strength beneath it. Daniel was not just any man, he was Delta Force, trained to move silently, strike hard, and protect with an intensity few could imagine. But to Emma, he wasn't defined by his title. He was the man who noticed her smile when no one else did, who called her the calm in a storm, and who made her believe that she was worth more than the world had ever told her. With her phone still tucked in the pocket of her overalls, Emma struggled against the rope until she could nudge it free. Fingers trembling, she pressed one number she knew by heart. The line clicked. Daniel's voice was calm but sharp, trained to hear distress even in silence. "Emma," he asked. She didn't waste words. Just a whisper, "I need you." That was all. What Emma didn't see was the way Daniel dropped everything the second he heard her voice. He had faced enemies across oceans, navigated battlefields, and protected entire squads, but nothing compared to the urgency of knowing his wife was in danger. His team had always joked that Daniel never broke composure, but now, driving through rural roads with knuckles white against the wheel, his heart thundered. She was his anchor, his reason for surviving all those missions. And no one was going to hurt her. Back at the farm, the bullies grew bolder. They mocked her silence, questioned her husband's absence, and tried to break her spirit. But Emma met their jeers with an unshakable gaze. "You don't know who you're dealing with," she said softly. The moment the ropes fell away, Daniel caught Emma in his arms, pulling her close. The softness of his embrace contrasted with the steel in his eyes as he glared over her shoulder at the bullies. "You don't touch her again. Not now. Not ever." His words, though spoken quietly, carried the weight of a man who had seen war, and would bring it upon anyone who dared threaten his family. The bullies scattered, their bravado gone, leaving only silence in their wake. Daniel gently brushed the rope marks on Emma's wrists, his thumb tracing over her skin as if to erase what had happened. "I'm here," he murmured, and for the first time since the ordeal began, her tears fell, not from fear, but from relief. In the days that followed, the story of what happened spread quickly through the small town. Whispers turned into lessons. People realized that quietness was not weakness, and strength did not always roar. It could stand silently in the field, tending crops, carrying burdens, and waiting with patience. And if anyone doubted Emma again, they remembered the men who came for her, not as a soldier, but as a husband whose love turned into an unbreakable shield. Emma and Daniel returned to their lives on the farm, the peace of the countryside restored. But something had changed. Emma carried herself with even more quiet pride, and Daniel, though he had always known her strength, now cherished even more deeply the woman he had sworn to protect. Together, they stood as proof that love could be fierce, loyalty could be unshakable, and even in the face of cruelty, the human spirit could endure. The message of their story lingered long after the incident faded. It reminded everyone that true strength isn't always the loudest voice in the room or the strongest fist. It's the courage to endure, the faith to call for help when you need it, and the love that rushes to your side when the world tries to break you. The day had started like any other on the farm. Emma rose before the sun, pulling on her boots while the rooster crowed faintly in the distance. She had a way of moving quietly, with purpose. Animals stirred at her approach, trusting her steady hands and calm voice. To outsiders, Emma seemed ordinary, almost invisible, just a quiet farm girl who kept to herself. But in truth, there was something extraordinary about the strength she carried in her silence. She had learned long ago that life wasn't kind to soft hearts. As a child, she was teased for being quiet, for not fighting back. She built walls around her heart, teaching herself to endure. But the farm became her sanctuary, a place where the world's cruelty couldn't reach her. And when Daniel entered her life, she found more than a partner. She found someone who saw her silence not as weakness but as strength. But that afternoon, the peace shattered. The trouble began when a group of young men, fueled by arrogance and boredom, wandered onto her land. They were the kind who thrived on making others feel small. Everyone in town knew them, their tempers, their troublemaking, the way they picked on anyone they thought couldn't fight back. Emma hoped they would pass by. She lowered her head, focused on stacking feed bags, pretending not to hear. But they didn't pass by. "Hey, farm girl," one sneered. "Where's that tough husband of yours now? Heard he's never around. Guess you're all alone, huh?" Emma kept working, her silence like armor. But silence, to bullies, was blood in the water. They closed in, circling her like vultures. She tightened her grip on the shovel, debating whether to run or stand her ground. Before she could decide, one yanked the tool from her hands, tossing it aside. They mocked her plain clothes, her quiet nature, her life away from town. One grabbed her arm, and when she tried to pull away, they laughed louder. "You think you're better than us? Hiding behind your tough husband." Roughly, they dragged her toward the trees at the edge of the property. Fear gripped her chest as the rope scraped against her skin, binding her wrists. She struggled, but the more she fought, the tighter they pulled. Within minutes, she was tied against a tall oak tree, their laughter echoing through the fields. The bullies thought they had broken her. But Emma's eyes, steady and unflinching, told a different story. They hurled insults, waiting for tears, waiting for begging. Instead, she whispered words they couldn't understand. "You don't know what you've just done." They only laughed harder. What they didn't realize was that Emma's phone, tucked in her pocket, still rested within reach. Through sheer determination, she shifted against the bark, ignoring the rope's bite until she nudged it free. With trembling fingers, she dialed one number, the only number she trusted. When Daniel's voice came through, her fear cracked just enough for a whisper. "Daniel. I need you." There was silence on. The boys hesitated, masking their fear with laughter. "And if we don't?" one challenged. Daniel took one step forward. That was all. The way he moved, the precision of it, spoke louder than any threat. One boy staggered back. Another swallowed hard. They'd never been in the presence of a man like this before, a predator who didn't need to roar. Emma's ropes were cut in seconds. She collapsed forward into Daniel's arms, and he caught her as if she were the only thing in the world that mattered. He brushed the rope burns on her wrists with gentle fingers, then looked back at the bullies. His gaze alone froze them in place. "If you ever touch her again," he said, his voice a quiet storm, "you'll beg for the mercy I won't give." The bullies scattered, tripping over roots and stumbling into the field, their courage gone. Daniel held Emma close, his chest rising and falling against her cheek. "I've got you," he whispered, over and over, until her trembling stopped. And in that moment, she realized something. The world would always have cruel people, but she had something stronger. She had a man who would cross fire and fury to reach her. In the days that followed, the town buzzed with the story. The bullies, once loud and untouchable, avoided Emma like shadows afraid of the light. People looked at her differently now, not as a quiet girl, but as someone whose strength had been tested and proven. And they looked at Daniel with respect, though most only whispered of the intensity in his eyes that night. But to Emma, the real story wasn't about fear or intimidation. It was about love, the kind of love that answered with action, the kind that turned silence into strength, and the kind that proved family is worth fighting for, no matter the odds. The farm returned to peace, the orchard growing quiet again. Yet every time Emma walked past the oak tree, she didn't shiver or flinch. She stood taller. Because that tree wasn't a memory of what was done to her, it was a reminder of what she overcame, and the men who had come when she needed him most. And the message of her story reached far beyond the farm, that true strength isn't about loudness or violence, but about resilience, loyalty, and the love that makes ordinary people unbreakable.